So the question of what's special about entrepreneurs and what kind of characteristics entrepreneurs has preoccupied people and researchers for many years. It is one of the lines of research that has proven to be slightly difficult and frustrating for the simple reason that you can't box entrepreneurs into something very small and specific. I would interpret my own experience and actually the research that has been done on this, that entrepreneurs come in all varieties, definitely all genders, definitely all ages, definitely all ethnicities, definitely all backgrounds. So I think it's quite dangerous to limit the notion of who can be an entrepreneur. Frankly, anybody can do it if they want it. Now, having said that, there are probably some human tendencies that will make you more inclined towards entrepreneurship. And certainly the first one that comes to mind is risk-taking. It turns out that that's actually confusing in the sense that notorious risk-takers, gamblers, don't necessarily become entrepreneurs. They go straight to Las Vegas or into the casino. And entrepreneurs are, I would say, risk tolerant, but they're not risk seekers. In fact, they see themselves as reducing risk. The job of an entrepreneur is not to take risk, but to manage risk. And so I think the willingness to deal with risk is something that entrepreneurs, do need. In addition to this question of risk-taking and risk management, it is often said that entrepreneurs like control, and there's certainly a notion that entrepreneurs are willing to take control of a situation, take control of their destiny. And so we do find that entrepreneurship is associated with sort of this willingness and interest to control things. I would say there are two more characteristics that are really important. One is entrepreneurs tend to be optimists. It comes hand in hand with the control issue, but they're optimists because they're not on. I would say that entrepreneurs are optimistic, definitely, but it's really that the optimists choose to become entrepreneurs more than it's inherently entrepreneurs who are optimistic. It is when you become very optimistic about a certain opportunity that you jump into it and decide to take the entrepreneurial leap. Maybe the most important characteristic, however, is entrepreneurs are hardworking. We now have objective data on this. The hours of work put in by entrepreneurs are much higher than the hours of work of employed people. And in fact, entrepreneurs that have a corporation, not just the self-employed, but the ones who hire other people, tend to work the longest hours. So the one thing I would say that is definitely about true entrepreneurs is they work very hard. So at some point in time, almost every entrepreneur faces the question of, how do I finance this? This is bigger than what I can just finance with my own resources. So where do you get the money from? People can get very confused about that. And some people's gut reaction is, well, I just got to talk to my bank manager. Well, hello, this is the 21st century. We don't have bank managers. You just try to go online somewhere for the bank today. So no, the answer is most probably not your bank manager. There is a whole ecosystem of investors out there, however, and there is no simple answer as to where you should get your money from because it depends on the type of business and very importantly on how far along you are with your business. First distinction every entrepreneur should make, do I want debt or do I want equity? Debt sounds great because all you have to do is pay back, but actually that's very difficult in a startup because you're typically not generating cash for a long time. And that's one of the many reasons why equity is actually often the right answer. You can get some debt from credit cards, but be careful. That can get very expensive very quickly, and so I tend to recommend not to use credit cards, except for transactional purposes, but not as a tool for getting investments. Occasionally, you're lucky you can get loans or there's certain grants. Beautiful, if you can get them. But the majority of entrepreneurs at some point have to get some kind of equity financing. People then think, oh, let's go and talk to a venture capitalist. Well, it needs a lot of work and it needs a lot of preparation before you're ready to go to venture capital. And increasingly, you're going to be looking at angel investors and, in the modern world, crowdfunding. And so there's equity crowdfunding, there's also project crowdfunding or donation-based crowdfunding. But these are relatively new tools that are becoming more and more popular for entrepreneurs. Each of them is a strategic decision because it's not just money. Money comes with strings and it will affect the kind of business you're going to build. So a lot of businesses fail. A lot of them fail relatively early on in the first year, but they fail in the second, third year, and in fact they fail at any point in time. So failure is part of the entrepreneurial process. And one of the biggest realizations is that failure is not what you think it is. Failure is just a natural step in the evolution of creating something big. There are two types of failures, or in fact there are probably many types of failures, but I think two are worth distinguishing here. There is the failure of the initial idea, where you thought you're doing something. You thought that you need to have a better application for buying cat food, and it turns out that that's just not that important. But in the process of doing that, you find something else, and eventually this leads you to a really promising opportunity. That is a type of failure that is just leading to you to changing your strategy. We like to call it pivoting, but you basically learn. It's just a set of experiments in which the individual experiment fails, but the process of learning continues. That type of failure is completely healthy and natural, and every entrepreneur does it. The second type of failure is that you really start a business, you make some investments, and after a certain time, actually often more than a year, 2-3 years down the road, you realize this just doesn't work and there isn't another pivot that makes sense. I have to pull the plug on this. That type of failure is more painful. There are big cultural differences about this. Doing this in the Japanese context can be terrible. Doing this in Silicon Valley is totally normal. So it depends a little bit on where you are. It also depends on how you fail. Did you fail because you envisioned a market that hasn't materialized as quickly as you thought it would? Or did you fail because everybody thinks you did all the wrong steps at all the key moments? So the latter part, that type of failure, is more painful. It needs to be sort of handled a bit more. But even that, I would say, a lot of good entrepreneurs have to go through that process, or just do go through that process. And I think there what really matters is integrity. That whatever you can say about the business with hindsight, people will say, he or she did the best she could, she retained her integrity, and that means that your career might be going off in very interesting directions. So if you want to start up your own business, or if you're thinking about starting your own business, what are the things that you should be looking for? I would say the first thing has to be some kind of a personal passion, some kind of an interest. If you're starting a business because you want to get rich, you're already on the wrong footing, and entrepreneurship isn't right for you. Because even though entrepreneurs do want to become rich, and there's nothing wrong with that, the motivation is never the money alone. It is always the process of starting something, the amazing experience of working with other people to build something new, or the product, the service. You actually really want to bring this idea to the world, and you want to make that impact, create a dent in the world. And unless you've got that passion, I would say don't bother. The second advice is, don't think of entrepreneurs as the lone hero, the lone cowboy. Entrepreneurship is a deeply social experience. I highly recommend entrepreneurs working as teams. I am much more excited about seeing an entrepreneurial team rather than a single entrepreneur. Teams can help out each other, teams can complement each other, teams can go much further, but it's hard. So build a team, but make sure you choose your co-founders very carefully. Don't necessarily commit right at the start. Get to know each other and see what is the right combination of skills and personalities, and that will help you to, build the right team. And the third one is learn to have some grit. Learn to implement. Entrepreneurship is maybe 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. It's all about doing it. So you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, get going. And the beauty of entrepreneurship is that you're going to be doing so many things in such a short time that the experience is incredibly rich, stressful, long work hours, but incredibly great for developing your own personality, your own skills, your own life experience. So be prepared for doing a lot of things you've never done before, and make sure you enjoy the ride.